and welcome to another week of holiday hotspots from Wish You Were Here Today. Well, this week I'm based in Orlando, which is one of the favourite destinations for British holidaymakers in the world. Now, people come here for lots of different reasons, but the main one, of course, is the theme parks, and I'll be taking a close look at those a little bit later in the show. But first up, it's competition time. Your chance to win a holiday for the price of a phone call. And this is today's fantastic prize. And this is today's question. Lines are open right now, so you can call straight away and maybe win that holiday. And the good thing is we shan't keep you hanging around to find out whether you've won or not, because lines will be closing shortly and then we'll be announcing the winner at the end of the show. And we've got all of this coming up on Wish You Were Here Today. Right, well, we're here in Orlando, and for our first trip we're heading about 350 miles to the southeast over to the Bahamas. Now, the Bahamas are made up of around 700 islands, and they curve in this huge arc from Florida right down to the Caribbean. Now, I think it's fair to say that some of the islands are a bit touristy, but if you go island hopping, you'll find some very laid-back places, like the Out Islands. Well, if you thought Vicky and Martin's holiday looked rather special, now's your chance to win your own trip to the Bahamas. It's competition time again. And the lucky winner will hear their name at the end of the programme, which I think's reason enough to stay tuned. And we've got all of this still to come on Wish You Were Here Today. Welcome back to Wish You Were Here Today. Well, this week I'm in Florida, America's Sunshine State. Now, whether you want to soak up the sunshine here or on the West Coast, or perhaps take a bite out of the Big Apple, or in fact, visit anywhere in the US, you're going to have to make sure that your passport is up to scratch. Well, this is what a biometric passport looks like. All pretty similar. That is until you get to the last page. Now, this chip here holds all your personal information. A little word of warning, with all these new immigration procedures, it does take quite a long time to actually get into this country these days. But once you're here, it's time for your holiday to start. People come to Florida for lots of different types of holidays, but if they're coming to Orlando, it's generally for the theme parks. Disneyworld in Florida has a whole host of attractions and 4 major theme parks. This one is called Epcot. You can see the sign behind me. And when it was conceived way back in the 60s, that actually stood for, let me get this right, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. But these days they just call it Epcot. Well, this is Mission Space. It's the newest ride here, and it's a simulation of a trip to Mars, which in real life takes about 3 months, so I'm hoping it's a little bit shorter.
Mission Space, a ride that is reputed to have cost over $100 million, uses NASA technology on gravity spheres. They claim the ride gives you the closest experience to spaceflight outside the shuttle.
Come with us and leave your hurt behind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, here goes. Lift off. Whoa! I don't know what the G-force is. I'm impressed with the back of my seat here. That's such a bizarre sensation.
Engineer,
I know for a fact that we're spinning around like that, but it feels like we're flying forward. Mars is approaching at a rate of knots. Flying down a canyon now. Mission accomplished.
And welcome to the astronaut corps.
That was great. I was about to say it's really realistic, then I remembered I've never been to Mars. It's good fun. Well, the park's split into 2 main areas. You've got Future World and World Showcase, which is the bit I'm standing in right now. Now, this is pretty much restaurants and shops with an international theme.
The World Showcase has 11 pavilions around the lagoon, each portraying a different country, from China to Canada.
And that, of course, is Italy. Now, you can tell that's a replica of St. Mark's Square, not the real thing, because it's not flooded.
The first thing you notice about Epcot is the size of the park. Sat on 300 acres, it's 3 times bigger than the Magic Kingdom, and it feels less crowded than the other major theme parks. Well, for me, theme parks are about rides, and the next stop is one of my favourites.
This ride is called Test Track. It's Disney's fastest ride, and it goes up to 65 miles an hour. Now, we're talking about a theme park ride here. That's quick. Here it goes. Now, this is what's called the environmental chambers. So these lights are pumping out a lot of heat, and now we're going into the icy bit, I think. That's cold and horrible. So basically, on this ride, you are being a test track dummy. Oh, crikey, 64.8 miles per hour.
With nearly 100 parks and attractions here, there's always something new to talk about. So we'll return to the subject of theme parks in a few days.
And we'll be seeing what else Orlando has to offer throughout the week. But right now we are travelling to the Italian capital. Now the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it certainly Rome. However, Mary Nightingale is taking up the challenge to see how much of the city you can do on a short break.
Of course, it goes without saying that you'll need a hotel in a good position. Mine's right by the Vatican and St. Peter's. How about that for a view at breakfast time? The next part of the plan is to divide the city into 3 zones: Roman, religious and Renaissance. So, let's start with Renaissance.
Piazza Navona is our starting point. It's dominated by Bernini's 17th century fountain, the Four Rivers. Now, it's said that the figures are shielding their eyes from the church behind, which was designed by Bernini's bitter rival, Borromini.
Now, 1st century AD, this was a stadium, and they actually used to fill the middle with water so that they could reenact naval battles on this central bit. Those houses over there are built where the stands used to be, and nowadays the whole place is full of very expensive and rather tempting bars.
Well, tempting they may be, but no time right now because I've got a lot of sightseeing to do. And by sticking resolutely to the tourist trail, I passed the French National Church with its paintings by Caravaggio, and, as it's on the way, take a step back in time.
It's the Pantheon. It was built in 118 AD, and the huge portico is supported by 16 Corinthian columns, but apparently it's only once you get it that you really see what makes it one of the architectural wonders of the world.
One vast, unsupported dome made of Roman concrete, which, if it continued right to the ground, would make a perfect sphere. And now follow the crowds to Rome's favourite monument, Trevi Fountain.
It's got to be the most famous fountain in the world. It was built in the 18th century and designed to look like a theatre with the water as the stage.
Then it's just down the road to the Spanish Steps.
This is yet another must-see sight. The city's full of them, it's incredible, but there is another good reason to come here. It faces one of Rome's main shopping streets, the Via dei Condotti.
And yes, all the big names are here, but if high fashion means too high prices, you'll find a few popular shops wedged in between. And if you're feeling foot-weary, then here's the perfect place to recharge those batteries.
Cafe Greco opened its doors in 1760 and has hosted some of the world's great intellectuals. One of its specialities is this. It's a sort of frozen espresso, if you like. It's called Granita di Cafe, and it'll cost you about £4.
Next, the religious zone. These great walls enclose the Vatican, a city within a city with its own newspaper and priceless works of art. The Basilica of St. Peter's marks the end of your... There are stacks of facts and figures, but the simple truth is that it is huge, big enough to hold the largest Premier League football crowds.
Well, after all that sightseeing, the cool of the evening comes as quite a relief. Quick shower, change, and back out to the Borghese Gardens for the view over the Vatican at sunset. It really is wonderful.
And last on our hit list, the ancient Romans. Everywhere you're surrounded by memories of that extraordinary period of history.
And this is the Forum, which is the largest surviving complex of buildings from ancient Rome. By the way, if you buy the right guidebook, you can get some idea of how it used to look. And once you've walked through the Forum, you reach the building that really has come to symbolise Rome, the famous Colosseum.
Built 70 years before the birth of Christ, it has begun to show its age a bit, but as you peer through the railings, it's easy to imagine gladiators locked in combat. The Romans loved their sport. At the nearby Circus Maximus, crowds of 200,000 would watch chariot racing.
Well, we're back in the Piazza Navona where we started, and that's the end of my 3-day, 3-stage guide of Rome. And certainly for a first-time visit, you do get to see all the important sites, but you may have noticed there's one crucial area I haven't even mentioned: the food. Well, it probably deserves a programme all of its own, if I'm honest, but we don't have time, so you're just going to have to take my word for it, aren't you? It is fantastic.
A good meal out needn't be expensive. A typical 3-course dinner should cost around £20, with an extra £10 for a bottle of decent wine. Now you'll find reasonably priced, good quality restaurants in side streets around the Piazza Navona. Now you'll need a lot of time to do the Vatican properly, so plan your priorities in advance. And it's probably best to avoid visiting the city in July and August because it's very hot and sticky. But as well as that, lots of the businesses are closed. Well, that's all for me today in Orlando, here with Space Mickey. Now listen out for the name of our competition winner. That's coming up any second now. I'll be back with more from the Sunshine State tomorrow, so I'll see you then. Come on, Mickey.